about myself.
Yeah, but you're as
I'm a PE teacher, first and foremost, and probably spent the goods of 30 years involved in coaching kids in lots of different sports, and obviously Gaelic games is my game, so that's me.
Lizzy Kent, same question.
I work down here in WIT. I suppose I'm involved in coaching predominantly Gaelic football for the last 20 years, and I also am involved now in soccer coaching as well. So they say that I have commitment issues, so I'm not sure which sport I'm committed to. So.
And Jason Ryan, same question for you.
I'm a PE teacher as well. Just lucky to have a massive love of sport and thoroughly enjoy in my old age now coaching.
You're not old yet. Okay, lovely. That's grand. Right. Same question for the three as a warm up. What's the best aspect of coaching a team, and maybe what's the worst aspect of coaching a team, Mick?
The best aspect of coaching a team, I suppose. I started in coaching like probably most people in the room. At 19 years of age, there was not enough people in the club to help out, and I was playing senior football. I was handed a bag of balls and a set of cones, and about 10 years later someone asked me in the club how I was getting on. That's probably something that most of us have experienced. I've been terribly lucky to be involved with an incredible amount of good people that are involved in our games. As life has gone on, like it used to be a stage where I started out and I was driven by one goal, and that was to win. I don't see it like that anymore. I see much more developing the person to be better human beings, as well as obviously trying to be successful. I think that part of you will never leave, right? I don't think it ever should. So that's the best aspect of meeting really good people, and the more I go around the country and the more people that you engage with, we all follow or chase that same dream in different aspects of it. The worst part of it is I still can't get over how losing games affects me so much. I constantly try to work on not being so down over losing games, and the hurt that comes with it, that 24, 48, 72. I was even asked after the weekend, we lost the National League game to Galway, how is this, after 30 odd years coaching, how does it still hurt the same way? You're trying to find ways that it shouldn't, that you're not going home like an absolute antichrist to your wife and kids, and it shouldn't be like that. I'm trying to learn tricks constantly to change that. That's definitely the worst aspect of being involved.
You haven't been pissed off too often. Anyway, this is the same question. The best and the worst.
I suppose I'm very much, I would have played for a number of years, and I'm maybe different in the sense of I enjoy coaching as much as I enjoyed playing. I love the opportunity to help facilitate for people to get better in whatever code it is or whatever aspect it is. I really enjoy that. I love engaging with players and finding out what makes players tick. And I suppose, yeah, that's something that never leaves me, as in that will to improve, that personal improvement and being able to assist. And that's all you do. You're just assisting in that. But I love the buzz of that, and I love the buzz of, you know, players achieving what they want to achieve. The negative side, or the area maybe that I don't enjoy as much, probably carrying gear around all the time is one. I think everyone can kind of relate to that. But similar to Mick, yeah, as in I'm very driven about the player and the player improvement, but I struggle with the defeats as well, and I struggle where it's 3 or 4 days later and I'm still carrying it. I suppose I'm getting better at it, I think. But I guess when you're that invested in it and you see the disappointment in other players and other people, yeah, I do. I find that hard, and I find it hard that it affects me so much afterwards as well. But carrying gear is another one as well. So I've tried to get better at how I do that and how I don't lose all the gear along the way as well. So that would be my two.
Why don't you get on to Jim Bulger, get a horsey or something, carry the stuff. Jason, same question for you, same true for you.
Yeah, very similar to Mick's. I suppose meeting people, it's amazing working with people of different ages, but then the joy that they can get from sport and the benefits they can get from it. You have the mental health and physical health. It's great meeting somebody a number of years after you've coached them or worked with them, and the memories that are created. You know, when I think about sport, I feel actually warm and happy about the whole thing, and that's from a young age. And like sport has opened up so many doors for all of us to I know I'm repeating myself, meeting other people, but the amount of friendships that have been created through sport is just brilliant. From a negative point of view, the positive I said is about meeting people, and the negative is people then as well. It's when you're working with kids, the negative thing for me in sport is parents very often. I find that really challenging, working with parents and the demands that they put on their children. And maybe I'm one of those then as well with my 2 kids, but the maybe lack of empathy sometimes the parents can have for their kids or for the coaches, and the amount of time that coaches give up for under 11s and 12s and minors and whatnot. Where's the level of understanding? The level of understanding should be more there. I get frustrated at times by parents when they walk away, might come off a bus, but the lack of parents that actually say, thanks very much for taking my son or daughter away for the whole day and giving them an enjoyable day and a great experience. And I'm not saying that I would be doing it to get that thanks, but I think that recognition should be there. And it's one of the young groups that I'm working with at the moment. At the end of every training session, I make them shake hands with each other, but I ask them to say thank you to all of the coaches before they go away. So positive people, and then the negative, the people thing as well. And from a people thing then, Mick touched on it there with the disappointment for himself losing and how it affects him. But the disappointment of when you're working with people and you find out they're not in a starting team or they're not in a squad, having that conversation, it is horrendous. It's something that I've never enjoyed, and something that I found really, really, really difficult, because you know how hard they work. Everybody works really hard to try to achieve whatever is their goal or their passion of getting into the team, and it's all about getting into the first 15 for so many people, and not everybody can be. So
the game is at the top. Everything is going right in the game. It's that very enjoyable to sit back and watch that when you know that the guys, the girls, they're all ready. Is that good, Mick?
Jeez, I haven't seen that too often. Most of the times coming into a big game, you get the flattest performance of your life. I remember back in 2013, which just goes to show you, we played an in-house game 2.5 weeks out from the All-Ireland final, and the score was something like 320 to 318. And we sat back afterwards and said that was one of the best games of football we've ever seen in our life. The forwards coaches were thrilled and the defence coaches were shattered, right? And that's a fact. So no matter how good it is, you still find faults in what you're doing. And 2.5 weeks later, we scraped over the line against Mayo in an All-Ireland final. But so there's obviously those days where it does come together. We're all the same this. When we go to watch the big games, the end product, which, whatever, in the big stadiums, what we see is clarity in front of us. That's what we see. It looks seamless, right? And a lot of us imagine that's because they're the best players. That's a muddle. For 10 or 11 months of the year, that is a muddle. It's mayhem. The training ground, there's problems, you're constant fixing, whatever else. And for 1 or 2 or 3 days, it's clarity. It becomes seamless for the spectator. But for 95% of the time, it's problematic. And that's a reality in coaching that we all have to see. It's not easier, no matter where you are, whether it's the under 10 team in the club or the senior team in the club or senior into county. It's not easier. It doesn't get easier. And different problems arise from different situations like that. That I see that one over the years what Jason was referring to, as regards parents and whatever else. But we brought in, Paul O'Connell had a great statement, I think you might remember from the time he captained the Lions, and his quote was, let's be the best at all things that require no talent. I don't know if you remember that one, right? So we over the years, and I would have learnt a lot of this off Jim, the culture that was tried to create around the group is so important. I try and create it even in the school environment with kids, but certainly with club teams and inter-county teams that I've been involved with, right? So we form our own culture. What are the things that we're going to try to be better at? You know, what is it? Whether it's just like a simple thing. I went in and met Leinster Rugby 2 years ago, and it was incredible to walk into the room whereby you have every single player and member of staff coming up shaking hands with you. It doesn't make a difference who you were for that day. You were in their environment and you were treated the exact same as the person who was serving the tea or the person who was taking the session. So we tried to replicate simple things like that, just to respect it. Sometimes when there's 50 odd people involved, as you know, it's quite time consuming, particularly when you're an amateur, they're in a professional environment, so it's a little bit different. But all those things matter to me now as the journey has gone on. You know, as much as trying to win a bit of silverware, that dignity around the setup, that you're creating better people. And I was interested, I don't know who asked the question there about how many hours a week, you know, should a kid be involved in sport and whatever else. 90% of our kids aren't doing enough. There's a small percentage of kids who are on an overload, but 1 in 3 Irish kids, you know, overweight, heading towards being the most obese country in Europe by 2030. Like, we've so many problems, and realistically there's an element here through associations, predominantly in Ireland through the GAA, who solve those problems. The recommended amount of exercise per day is an hour. So are there kids doing 7 hours? There are lots of kids not even doing an hour. So, you know, when you go to a training session, you talk about what does it take out of them. It's the time spent getting to the training session and coming away from it. It's maybe the stress of, will they get a game, you know? Like, I was listening to a club there last week who told me that up to under 16 now, the club policy, not the GA policy, is that every child gets 30 minutes of play. So now it's unlimited substitutions up to under 16. So you have a situation where, what a fantastic rule, because that's stressful. That's more stressful than doing an extra hour's training, not getting a game. So,
yeah. Very good. Question for you, Lizzie. Are players' concentration levels different now? And if so, why? To compare with, say, 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think, as in, it's a big question people ask with regard to, you know, players from 10 years ago to players now. What's the difference? To me, and my learning of it and having gone through it, I suppose, a lot of things are very, very, very much the same. I think once you create the environment, and I think that's the big difference now, as in, I think maybe in the past people came in, the players drove the environment, as it should be, but I think as coaches now, it's our responsibility for the environment that we set up. So in the past, it was probably, and this will be a little bit of a contradiction, it was probably maybe quite coach-led. So although it's the coach's responsibility to facilitate the environment, I think it's important that the coach then allows the players to, I suppose, grow the environment. So where I'm coming from with this is that years ago I would have been maybe told what to do, whereas now, and as a coach, I probably would have done the same. I would have said, this is what I want you to do, bang, 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 out you go. Whereas now, and I suppose maybe it is because of how the players are and because of that, you know, they have so many other distractions outside of the field. Now I very much like to involve the players in their own learning. So it's not me dictating to them what they do, I'm just facilitating. Now, it comes to a point where maybe a decision has to be made, and absolutely you have to go with that. But I don't see that as an issue, because how I work around that is that I engage the players in their learning. So their concentration within the field, when they're in, they're on, I'm on them, they're on me. So it's more of a collective learning. But if you're asking me if there's distractions, there's so many distractions now. So as coaches, it's important that our product is good, as in that our environment is good, that the kids, the adults, whoever, want to be in our environment. So I suppose, yeah, I guess that's kind of where I would come from in relation to that. There is loads of distractions, we know that, obviously, different sports, different activities. I have nieces, and honest to God, I can't keep up with them. Like, they're 10 and 11 and they have 2 and 3 activities on a Saturday, you know. So what decides, or what for them, they come to activities because they enjoy it, okay, and because they're involved in it. I think, again, people are people, and, you know, like, people from 10 years ago are very similar to today, in the sense of we all love being part of something that's bigger than us. We all love being in a fun environment. So I think it's how we facilitate that, as opposed to maybe that there's distractions that are taking us away from it.
Fair play. By the way, I will be opening up for a few questions from the floor after a while. Just get the thing going. Jason, one for you. Is coaching easier now? And if it is or if it isn't, is that because of the player, the coach, or the game? Again, we'd say compared to 10 years ago.
That's a corker. I don't know. I suppose it depends on what level it's at, doesn't it? You know, I think accessibility is probably easier. So from a kid's point of view, there's transportation, access facilities. They're better than what they were before. Like I remember as a kid, you'd be training on a postage stamp area, whereas now we're lucky. Look at where we are today. Look at this magnificent facility that we have here in Waterford. When Mick earlier on this morning and we were chatting, and the first thing that Mick said was, "Wow, what a facility that we have here." So from a development squad point of view, I'd imagine it's easier now than what it would have been in the past when you're making phone calls trying to get a pitch and it's not available. Coach knowledge, coaching education is better now than it ever was before. So I think that makes it easier for everybody really involved. I think the demands that are made on adult coaches, I would say now is tougher than ever before, because you've a club coach at whether it's junior, intermediate or senior level in Waterford, and you have guys that are coming back from the county squads and saying, with the county squad, this is what we do. So you have club players that are looking for nutritionists and physios and masseuses and the club gear, and you're looking for, you know, a pre-match meal, and are we doing enough foam rolling, and the mini bands are the wrong colour, they're black ones and they're too strong and I want to have the blue ones. So like, look, there's a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, and there's an awful lot of a little bit of knowledge out there. And the players, they want more. I suppose the media has led to a lot of that you just click on YouTube and you can look at Edinburgh doing a warm-up and think, I'm going to put Edinburgh doing that, why are we not doing that in our club, you know? But we're not allowed to do a lot of that because the Edinburgh training session, there's too many cones on the pitch, and we know that our ground management teams in our clubs, they wouldn't allow us to put all of those cones down and rip the pitch up. You'd be shot and told you can't do it. So look, I think some things are easier and some things are more difficult.
Fair enough.
I'm sitting on the fence.
No, yeah, well, you kind of answer at the same time. Mick, apart from the obvious, is there a fundamental difference have you found between coaching men's teams and coaching women's teams?
Jesus, there's a quandary. Is there anyone in the... over the last couple of years, a lot of people have said to me, oh, you manage the women team, and I said, are you serious? I got home and I don't manage one woman, how could I manage 36? There is a difference, yeah. Females are way more emotional, which I found out very early on. I have a psychologist involved with us. She's a member. She's played for them, but she's a member of our management team, and I'd say she's the busiest person in our setup. After the first year involved, after about 12 weeks, I asked her how she was getting on, and she said to me, "Oh, she said, great. You spend about 8 hours a week breaking them, and I spend about 12 hours a week fixing them." But what I found is. Fellas get angry. They come to you angry. They give out. What the fuck? So I'm not getting fucking picked. What's the story? You're not getting any fucking feedback or whatever. Girls get emotional. They get upset, and you hear somebody is upset, and you have to. So there's an awful lot of that, right? As regards the way they go about it, there's no difference. I know you didn't ask me this question, but this is actually something that's very interesting from a coaching point of view. When we took over the girls' team, it frustrated the life out of me after spending the whatever guts of 20 odd years involved with either development squads or lads' teams. And for anyone's involved in girls' coaching at any stage, whether you have daughters or otherwise, 90% of them kick the ball off their laces. So you kick the ball off your instep, that's your kicking it off. Kick it off your laces, that's your kicking off. So the percentages obviously are going to be lower for the return. To put that in perspective, in the 2016 All-Ireland final, the shot to score ratio was 32%. So essentially, out of 20 shots, they might have scored 6. They lost the game by a point. So you don't have to figure out a whole lot as to why they lost the game, right? So the reason being that most of them are kicking. So we went to a buy-on. Now this is this sounds an awful lot better than it actually is. We went to a biomechanist who was in DCU, so we train out of DCU. We didn't have to go a whole distance, right? And we asked him to come and have a look at, was there something, physically different? Was the mechanics different? Was their makeup different? That they actually were kicking the ball with their lace as opposed to their instep. So he asked us to give him footage of what we were looking for, and I think that's a really good thing. That thing has stood with me to this day. It's like I was doing something last night with a group, and we were working on the modern movement patterns of the game, and they ended up going all over the place. And for anyone that might remember the story of Alice in Wonderland when she came to the crossroads. Do you remember who she met? Come on, guys, for fuck's sake, wake up, will you? What did she meet?
Rabbit, was it?
The cat. What did she... You just heard rabbit hole earlier, so you were. So what did she meet? She met the cat. What she asked the cat? She asked the cat, what road do I take? What did the cat say to her? Where do you want to go? She says, I don't know. Well, she says, you can pretty much take any road. So the bottom line is when you're coaching, if you have a picture, if you know the picture that they're trying to get to, where they're actually going to get to, you have a much better chance of actually of achieving that. Does that make sense? So that's, what was I talking about before that? What?
Kicking off the laces.
Sorry?
Kicking off the laces.
So kicking off the laces. So with the biomechanist anyway, we sent him the footage, and the 3 girls that kicked off their instep had played soccer. Okay, so he said to us, I could have told you this 3 weeks ago, but I felt if I did, you'd have just felt I was dismissing you. So there's 2 reasons, right? Their glutes aren't strong enough to open the reductors. So Jay can come back up and give a little bit of a discussion on that in a few minutes, right? So their glutes weren't strong enough to open the reductors to kick off their instep. But the second thing is poor underage coaching. And my experience has been as follows, that, and I see it even now, my youngest is 6, my eldest is 21, but my youngest is 6. And I've changed over the years, right? But she's grown up using balloons in the house. So right hand, left hand, Lord bless John Morrison, who would have given me the idea of it, right? So she's able to use all 4 limbs at 6 years of age, right? And I'm not saying that everything is the same, but she's able to use them. There's no fear. She's grown up with the movement patterns, right? She's grown up at 6 years of age, way better than I was, right? Ever using her instep, because we've practiced from an early age, just out of fun games, not me talking about instep laces or outstep, just having fun games, right? But in an awful lot of cases, we give up on them. We just give up on them. They're girls. And I don't mean we just go, they're girls. We just feel they're a little bit different. There's no difference. There should be no difference. They should be able to strike the ball the same way. There may not be the same strength. They may not be able to kick from the same distances. So I know that's not what the question you asked me, but from a coaching point of view, there is differences, and one of the differences is us, that we need to, and that was one of the questions when we went into the group was, we asked them, do they want to be treated differently? And of course, obviously, no, they didn't. They wanted to be treated as footballers, not as females.
Fair enough. Lizzie, one for you. You touched on it there. Is there a fundamental difference between coaching a Gaelic team, ladies football team, soccer team?
Yeah. I guess yes and no is the answer. Like obviously the sports are different, but the processes are the same. So like across both sports, I'd have kind of key components that would be, I suppose I'd call them my non-negotiables. So things like attitude, work rate, like enjoyment. Okay, so all those elements don't change. You know what I mean? As in, and the expectations that we put in place for the players, they don't change. Obviously the codes are different, but in relation to like people are people, guys, and I guess they respond in the same way, or they respond, you know, across the codes. You know, it's really just the sport that's different. You know, the skills, the action, and with that, I find I use a lot of elements that in my Gaelic football coaching that I use in soccer, and vice versa. So that it's transferable. The skill element is transferable of it, and Mick touched on that with regards to the kicking, because I would have coached Gaelic football for a number of years, and it used to drive me mental, that punt kick, and that was all we coached. So like I would bring soccer into my Gaelic, where we'd be working like passing on the inside, working on that, and similarly some of the patterns of play that I'd use across both codes. So yeah, there's a difference in one sense, but a lot of the core components are very much the same, you know, so people are people.
Just like long ago when they used to play before, when the band was still there, they used to play ground football the occasional time just to change it up.
Yeah.
You're unfortunate, Jason, here because you see, once I'm listening to those, I'm thinking of another question for you. So the one I had here is, I'm going to ask you, again, Mick touched on it about bad coaching that kids might have received when they were young. Does there come a time when a player, as an adult, is kind of maybe uncoachable, whether that's because of age or attitude or something else? Or is a player always coachable? Individually, I suppose I'd say.
Yeah, but sure, we've all dealt with the uncoachable. They're there, like they're really challenging. Uncoachable is probably a bit final, you know. There's chinks. I remember getting advice off a coach when I started the inter-county stuff, and he had said to me, like, you know, really chase after when they do exactly what you want. You know, throw the dog a biscuit. You know, that's, you know, you have to give the treat at the right time. And Mick commented on, like, having the image of what you want, what do you want them to actually do. That sometimes a reluctance to change or a reluctance to develop is due to maybe they themselves have a pattern. They've it all worked out already. They've been playing for 25 years, 30 years, and that's what they see. And it's opening up their mind to what you did wasn't wrong, but maybe this might be a bit more efficient or a little bit better. And some of that, Jay commented on warm-ups. Sometimes you have to re-educate the importance of warming up a slightly different way. But I've always done it this way, and I played really well. Or I always ate that food. Like, they're my lucky socks. They're my lucky this, my lucky that. You know, those football boots, they're my really lucky football boots. Give me a break. You know, like, it means absolutely nothing. It's, you know, it's all a crutch. So I suppose it's changing that, and that's, I'd imagine for a lot of us here, that's part of what we enjoy in our coaching, that challenge of how do you change some of that, and it's difficult. But I suppose the more time that you spend with somebody, the more you get to know their little idiosyncrasies and their mannerisms and their behaviours and why they are what they are. And that Mick is, I suppose, lucky to be working with a group of ladies for an extended period of time that I'm sure you know. It's so different than in a club environment where you have an under-10 team that you meet them for 1 hour and they're rushing to get there and their parents are waving at them at the end to say, come on, we got to go now, because we have to go off to piano and then we have guitar and then we have taekwondo. So it's difficult. So the time you spend with a group, the time you spend with a person is vital. But it's any of us that are working with kids now, we can't be in a one-to-one setting with the kids, you know. So that's so it's an advantage when you're working with adults that you can actually meet them, arrange times, you can send a message on the phone or make a phone call and have those meetings. It's not going to go down too well. You're sending WhatsApp messages to 10-year-olds say we're going to meet in the clubhouse to have a chat individually, and going through, you're going to be in serious bother in fairly pronto, you know. So so your original question, I think everybody can develop, but you just have to sell it in such a way that they see the benefits in it, and that's the buy-in that Lizzie's talking about. If you don't have that buy-in, you're in bother.
Fair enough. I have other questions here, but I'd like to open it up to the floor. If there's any questions from the floor, I have other ones here.
Sorry, can I just tell her that on the uncoachable, it hits me. I mean, you'll enjoy this, right? So when I hear uncoachable, two things come into my head. Dermot Connolly. In 2011, I sat in the Hogan stand with a pal of mine, Tony Diamond, he's 4 young fellas involved with the Vincent senior team, but he coached Dermot for 15 or 16 years between underage and senior. And I don't know if you remember this moment, but under the Cusack stand, the All-Ireland final was against Kerry, obviously, and under the Cusack stand, or the Hogan stand, the Cusack stand, right hand side, a ball was on the ground and he stubbed the ball up with 3 or 4 Kerry lads around. I don't know if you remember him. And he broke out of the tackle and he released McMenamin and the goal was scored in a game that Kerry should have probably won. And Tony turned to me in the stand and he said, he's after making a fucking pick of me. And I said, why? He said, for 16 years I've told him to bend his fucking knees and pick up the ball. And I remember leaving there that day and I said to Tony, well, you and me are going to make a pact, we're going to coach that skill. That's a skill. And we took that upon ourselves because we were involved with the Sigerson together for those couple of years. And we went back and we started introducing it as a skill in the warm-up. Now, there are very few people able to execute that skill, right? And there are particularly very few people able to execute that skill under pressure, right? But the next thing that comes to mind with me is Owen O'Gara. So we met Owen O'Gara in 2010 when he was, 25 or 26. And I met a fella in around that time. I was given a coaching course to his club, and we started the whole thing with the complex skills, which you'll see downstairs, the use of two footballs, so all 4 limbs. And I was talking about it, and one of the people in his own club turned to me. He says, Owen hasn't got 1 foot, never mind 2 feet. And in 2013, on the Friday night before the All-Ireland final, we did an 18-shot challenge. So a 36-shot challenge during the year, but an 18-shot challenge, and we'll show you some down below. He scored the highest of any Dublin footballer that year on the Friday night before the All-Ireland final. And I talk about, I mean, I had my own preconceptions of what age you couldn't change, a kicking style or whatever else. He threw it out the window. He actually threw it out the window. He became the best kicker of the football that we had in that particular season. One of the reasons for it, he had a hip injury. He'd got his socket shaved. He was out for 4 months. So when he came back, all his sessions were one-on-one sessions. Now, I know we don't have the luxury of that in Gaelic games. In professional sports, they do. But player development, a one-on-one, created him to retune his kicking, right, when he came back into our environment. So when I would have been that soldier. Sometimes there are uncoachable players. I mean, I'll give you another idea which is brilliant, like the concept games. So you know the concepts of pass and move or two-touch football or switch the play, whatever concepts you play. So one of the concepts we would have used is play the way you're facing. And one evening in training, so the goal is there, and we were play the way you're facing, and Dermot just soloed over the ball, left the ball on the end line and walked away. He says, you fucking said play the way you're facing. So he played the concept to the nth degree, right? He was making his point to us. But the bottom line is there are players, those geniuses sometimes that are uncoachable, but let them off, they're geniuses.
Any questions from the floor? No, I have 1 or 2 more, but I'm just, we're back, kind of watching we've about 5. Yeah, sorry, there is, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, do the lads on the panel and lady have a view on development squads?
What's the question?
Development squads. What are your thoughts? Jason, take it first.
I think it's a great concept. I think it's fantastic that we've, I suppose, different responsibilities within, in my opinion, different responsibilities within the GAA in each of the counties, that you're looking from the top down and looking from the bottom up as well. I think it's a great opportunity for our players that show more potential or talent to give them an opportunity to taste more exposure to different type of coaching potentially, but also to train and play with players of a similar level. Reality of it is, for any particular age group with a development squad, there's going to be an element of elitism there, but that's the idea of it. You're trying to develop a group and give them more exposure. I'd imagine it's very challenging for parents and for clubs getting enough access to their own players if they're away with development squads. So the amount of hours or the amount of time that the players are away with development squads is really important. So you hear all sorts of stories of how much time is given and how much time is not given. But I think it's I think it's an important thing to have. It's how to run.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Jason. Yeah. Okay. I would have initially, my, I suppose, thought process around development squads, we would have set up development squads in ladies football in Wexford, and the initial process was to get the best players in, to get them better, to feed them into a county team. That was the initial kind of remit. My thinking on it has changed a little bit over the years, and I think the GAA in Wexford are kind of looking at a similar kind of concept as well. We're trying to widen the base of players that we have involved now. So if you have more players, you have more options to pick. And I suppose that's where now we're starting to widen the net a little bit on our development squads. That it's not solely focused, which initially it would have been, on just getting, say, 30 players in and drilling them to get them to inter-county level. It's about widening the base, getting more players involved, and maybe facilitating for those late developers that they can come through the process and maybe not slip between the cracks. So if you're picking inter-county squads from bigger numbers, you're giving yourself a different opportunity. I'm not saying which is right or wrong, but I'm just saying that's the model that we're kind of looking at in relation to growing numbers and trying to pick from that, as opposed to initially, and my thinking initially would have been get the best 25, drill them, get them up, so if you have more people with more information, if you have more people with more of an opportunity to improve, it works across the board because it improves the clubs, it improves the county setups, and it just in general improves the players in general, and they have a good experience out of it. So my thought process around development squads would be evolving, I would say.
There's an onus of responsibility on every county manager, whether it's involved with a development squad or right up to the top, to prioritise the clubs, to make sure that the players involved with them always remember where they came from, because that elitism thing sometimes in development squads, where a kid nearly puts on a county jersey and then forgets about their club, or I'm with the development squad, that's completely contradictory to the way why the games were set up in the first place. The advantages I've seen with the development squads is kids particularly from weaker club who may not have played at the same level of competition or got the same quality of training because of what was around them. They don't get as lost as they might have in the past, because when it gets to a certain stage, if you haven't played at a certain level, the standard will just be too far ahead of you. But I'm always very wary. That it drives me insane as a club person listening to a kid telling me, that I can't train. I can't train on Thursday night because I'm with the development squad on Saturday. Sorry, this is your club. Don't lose sight of it. So that part, and I think that when you're in charge of a team, you still have to always respect the players and the clubs they come from. If you drive the whole thing that you're with the county team now and forget, and there are people who do that, that's not helping the situation at all.
Yeah, we take one more to the slightly under pressure. Yeah, that's
question. Dual players then, especially younger players. Well, I mean, dual players like hurling and football are
dual players in development squads.
Yeah. Well, like in
So,
then we might have two clubs.
well, like the minor, I was involved back. And the last development squad I've been involved with, development squad in Dublin was 2003. So we made a decision in the minor year that year that we couldn't facilitate dual players. And why? A couple of years ago, Martin Fogarty, Martin Fogarty, who's a great fella. I was doing a talk, and he before I came on, he said, Mick's coming on next, and he's going to talk about the 4 skills of Gaelic football: catching, kicking, pulling and dragging. But the skills of Gaelic football are as high now, and I know lots of hurling people don't want to hear this, but the skills of Gaelic football, when they're let play, are as high, and the demands to improve them are exactly what was there forever in hurling. So if you want to maintain, like I saw it with Podge Collins, just a matter of interest, when I was with Clare. Podge tried to play hurling and football, and predominantly did it because his father was the manager, right? And there was a massive loyalty in it. But at the end of the season, I actually said to him, Podge, you're actually a hurler, right? And you're letting yourself down because you're falling between two stools now. It is not possible. It may be possible at a certain age group, but it eventually comes to the day, if you're going to try and be the best you possibly can at one sport, you do need all of those hours. You're only getting 3 contact hours of skills during the course of the week. How in the name of God are you going to be the best possible hurler or footballer if you're trying to serve 2 masters on that?
Yeah, just a point to add to that. I think I agree with the older age groups. I think you do have to look at it, and I think for us as coaches, I think what's really important is that the decision is per se taken out of the players' hands. What I see a little bit happening is it's like Mick's over the football, I'm over the hurling, I'm pulling the player that way, Mick's pulling them the other way. So it's up to us, particularly at the younger age groups. I think it is something that can be managed, but I think it has to be managed, and us as coaches and parents, we need to be the ones who are assisting the players in that, because what happens is, and I particularly see it in the female game as well, and it's probably across the board, They don't want to leave teams down. So by putting the onus back on them and making them decide, as in, I think you have to help them with that decision, and we have to manage that decision and not be putting that sort of pressure on our players. At younger age groups, I think they should be playing as much as they possibly can, but again, it has to be managed, and I think it's not up to 13 and 14-year-old kids to be managing it, it's up to us as the adults and the parents to be managing it.
Sorry, my point was like dual player in 2 different development squads. But,
Okay, yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, so on the Saturday morning they Camogie, Friday evening they football.
yeah,
But the whole county
level,
development squads, and then the, also clubs.
yeah.
They
Okay.
also play with clubs as well.
What you're asking is it feasible?
Well, yeah, basically, yeah. You know, what do you think? You think it, you know.
Yeah.
I have my own daughters in that situation, and I'm kind of concerned for her. You know that.
No, I understand.
Too much.
As in, absolutely. I think it's feasible to a certain age. I do. Probably once they come into kind of, I would feel, this is just my opinion, into under 16 level where they're starting to, 16 or minor, I think, where they're starting to really focus on one, I think yes. But I think up to that, I think it is feasible. Till they're sure of what maybe they want to play or what route they want to go down. But I think it's really important for those who are over the teams, and obviously you as a parent, like there'll be times where she's had too much on this week, and then you have to make a call on that. And I wouldn't feel guilty about making a call on that, as in the player has to be the centre of it, you know. I think it's feasible, but I think it's feasible to a certain age. But I think then, obviously, it depends on the player.
You reckon 15, 16 is kind of the time to
That'd be my opinion, yeah.
choose a direction?
Yeah.
Jason, do you want to add to that, or you?
Yeah, Lizzie made a comment there about player-centred. I think we, in sport in general, we often forget that it should be player-centred. Often it's team-centred in a sense of we're training. I know you trained earlier in the day, but sure, look, just come in and be there so all the lads can actually see that you still kind of care. Like that shouldn't be the way that it is. That if somebody is being drawn to different groups or different teams, communication has to be at a high level, whereby what is actually being done, how many hours are actually spending in a week, and the argument of that's going to take a lot of time to know what's going on and what they're doing. But we're looking at the minority of kids or teenagers that are in that situation. So it's monitoring them, that they need to be protected, they need to be minded, and we need to, because there is a danger that they will be the ones that will drop out because they will feel mentally burnt out, have enough, and being pulled and dragged in different directions. And one of you folks asked about hip injuries earlier on. Like I firmly believe that that's one of the main issues for a lot of the hip injuries. When I was involved with Kildare, I came down to meet Mr. Carton in Whitfield, and we organised for one of our physios to come in and go into the operation and see what the hell is going on with these hip injuries that are happening. In my first season with Kildare, I think there's 4 or 5 players needed to have the same hip operation. So, like, why is it actually happening? And he was convinced that it was during growth phases at the time, and he was convinced it was during growth phases in teenage years that the kids were being pushed and pushed and pushed, and that it was affecting them in later life. So there's a huge responsibility on us as coaches, whether it's at development squads or club coaches, and for parents to manage the load that's being put upon the most talented kids. Because if you are going from a development squad on Saturday, previous one on the Friday, club training on the Wednesday, are you doing exactly the same thing? And this is where the value is. If on Wednesday you're doing gymnastics, but on Thursday you're doing Gaelic football, they're very, very different. You're challenging the child in a totally different way, or the teenager in a totally different way. So there's massive value in physical development to look at not just all the Asian sports. They're playing lots of sports. They're playing basketball, they're playing Gaelic football, they're playing camogie, and they're playing soccer. But the reality is they're all very similar. You have the same movement patterns in each one of those. So there's huge value in having a taste of different areas. But they will all, as in doing taekwondo, do your gymnastics, play your Gaelic football, and they can all lead to come back to actually helping your hurling or your camogie or your Gaelic football in later life.
Thanks. Unfortunately, we'll kind of wrap this section here now. Now is my opportunity, because I won't have a chance again. A lot of organisation went into this the whole day, and for that a lot of credit is due to our full-time staff here, Owen and John and Dave, and particularly Barry. There was a lot of phone calls and a lot of organising made for this, and I think he deserves one of us. While we're on that, It was good old crack here and a lot of information, and for that, a special thanks to Mick, Lizzy and Jason.